This band is the Amity Affliction. They're a metalcore band from Brisbane, Australia that have been around for over 20 years now. On the surface, they might not seem like anything too out of the ordinary for the genre, but fans like myself would tell you that they've made some of the most heartfelt, vulnerable, and inspiring music in the scene, which is a pretty high bar to contest. A lot of their songs tackle extremely intense subjects with a consistent degree of creative quality in writing and music composition. Their chorus melodies are catchy, memorable, but they don't intend to manifest joy. Instead, their suggestions of pain, melancholy, and emptiness attach themselves to you as you listen. You can get a sense of the emotional severity baked into these songs before any of the lyrics even begin. Profoundly poignant metaphors and representations of those intense emotions, and home to those intense emotions being relayed to you in their rawest, unbridled form. The Amity Affliction have reliably delivered unmatched vulnerability and the darkest conceptions of personal challenges, while also leaving subtlety where each message can be applied to the unique experiences of everyone listening. It's an incredible ability, and that's why they're my favorite group of artists. I've held them in high regard for their specialty despite the perception of simplicity. And I think all the fans would share a similar sentiment that the music has definitely helped me navigate through difficult times in my life. However, as of now onward, the Amity Affliction will never be the same. If you don't know much about the Amity Affliction or anything about the Amity Affliction, there's a couple things you should be familiar with in order to understand what I'm talking about. The Amity Affliction has had a good amount of lineup changes throughout their history, but for almost a decade now they've had these 4 members. The 2 people that are most important here are these 2. This is Joel Birch. He's been in the band for the majority of its history and writes just about all of the lyrics to every song. He's the one that does the harsh screaming vocals. And this is Aaron Stringer. He is the original founder of the band and can be heard doing all of the clean singing vocals during any song's chorus. The 2 other members don't necessarily play as big of a role in the events that I'm about to go over. On May 24th, 2024, while touring in the United States and Canada, the band surprisingly announced that Aaron would not be continuing on their tour due to mental health and struggling with addiction. He would be going back home to Australia to sort that out. They said the issue was being worked on internally, and they encouraged fans to support him, respect his privacy, and they had hopes that he would recover and make a return. However, in multiple Instagram comments, Aaron claimed that he received no warning of being kicked off the tour, and that he was doing nothing wrong. These conflicting statements eventually died out, I assume, as the band's announcement post said, the issue was resolved privately. Good news came on September 2nd of 2024. Aaron posted on his Instagram saying that he was happy, sober, and thriving, and that he would be returning on another Amity tour before taking leave from the band throughout the next year. He said that he would consider his future with the band and spend quality time with loved ones. Aaron played his last show with the band in November before the break. Throughout the rest of 2024 and 2025, Aaron's social media was completely normal, with him just posting pictures of his life activities and his family. It seemed all was generally on the right track. On Valentine's Day, the band posted their second statement on the situation between them and Aaron. They said Aaron will no longer play on tour or record new music with the Amity Affliction. They said that their relationship has broken down, it's impossible for them to tolerate certain behaviors directed at them, and Aaron has made it clear that he does not enjoy or want to continue touring. They left a positive message for fans and for Aaron, and promises to continue into the future. Following this, Aaron took to his Instagram story and posted several memes, all of them essentially making fun of the Amity Affliction now that he was no longer in it. On top of that, he pinned a captionless image of his face combined with a picture of XXXTentacion. He also started liking comments from people sharing the sentiment that the Amity Affliction will never be the same without him, but also a few personal attacks targeting other members of the band, particularly Joel, and even blocking people commenting their agreement with the band's decision or their disappointment with his behavior. He's even been encouraged of dropping a diss track in association with a new music project of his. And somehow people actually supported that, despite us all vividly remembering what happened last time metal bands got into diss track related beef. There's other finer details to this situation and a lot deeper speculation being made into the personal lives of the band members, but going over them here isn't as relevant and in my opinion a little inappropriate. I've seen people investigating this stuff like crazy, and some people are calling it the metalcore version of the Beatles breakup. I personally don't see any of the information coming out of all that as particularly insightful, let alone if it's even accurate. What I wanted to do is make a collection of my thoughts on the main situation as a fan, which side I'm on, response to some of the different takes I see in the community, and what I think the future holds for the band. I support the Amity Affliction, and I do not support Aaron. I agree with the choices that the band made during this situation, and I don't like how Aaron handled it himself. This is not to antagonize or attack anyone who deals with mental illness, substance abuse, or anything similar. As someone who appreciates the kind of subject that this band intertwines with their music so incredibly well, I really hope you can see that. I think it was right for the band to intervene with Aaron and remove him from that tour. Most people would agree that Aaron's performance ability has deteriorated as of the past couple of years. He's gotten much worse at singing, and it's not the biggest deal, but I've seen him make mistakes with remembering lyrics sometimes. And he generally hasn't seemed focused or enthused in playing these shows. If these problems with his performances were the results of him struggling with mental health and his addiction, then I think it's perfectly justified for the band to remove him from the rest of the tour in order for him to get the help that he needed. Not only that, but the band sent him their best wishes and their hopes that he recovered and returned. They encouraged fans to show their support at the shows he wasn't playing, which many of them certainly did. And once again, if that is Aaron's behavior and attitude to touring that the band mentioned in their second post, which made it impossible for them to continue with him, then I think it's perfectly justified as well. If any member of a band is doing something that makes it impossible for them to keep touring with them, then that's a problem that should be addressed in this way. Aaron, on the other hand, has lost my respect in the way that he's handled this whole situation. He made comments saying that he was kicked off the band without warning, and really created the first divide in the fan base before he came to that private resolution with the band. I know Aaron's always a funny guy, but the memes were a bit much for a situation like this, and that came across as extremely petty of him. And on top of that, casually encouraging the hostility toward the band was extremely inappropriate and immature of him. The professionalism of the public response from him did not match that of the band's. And if he truly wanted to voice his negative opinion, then there are 100 other ways that could be done that are more productive and more mature. Instead, now you have this hard divide in the fan base, where I'll admit, both of them are hostile to each other and to the people involved. This is a horrible way to approach a situation like this right out of the gate, and he's done little to nothing to discourage personal attacks and invasion of privacy. Meanwhile, the band continuously encouraged peace, positivity, and support in all of their social media statements. And just to be clear, this isn't anything personal that I have against Aaron. He was just as much of a fan favorite to me as he was to probably everybody else. And I agree with a lot of the sentiment that Aaron's supporters are saying. How the band will never be the same without him. I completely agree with that. There's nothing you can do to replace someone like that. He was so important to the uniqueness of this band. And it's not just the music too, it extends beyond that. He got me into watching baseball and becoming an Orioles fan. But I will not uncritically support him based on what I have seen and what I think of his response to the situation versus how the band is doing it. I certainly would wish that they all stayed together and everything was good, but unfortunately that's not the reality. Now I want to respond to some of the common opinions and takes I see in the community. Joel had substance abuse problems while the band was on tour, and he wasn't kicked off of it like Aaron was. So Aaron should not have been kicked off this tour. The band just didn't want to put up with it for him like they did for Joel. From my understanding, I think in 2012, the band was on tour while Joel was struggling with alcohol addiction, which led to him having a medical emergency during a performance. By having this take, you are asking the band to let something like that happen again. You are asking the band not to intervene when there is a serious problem with one of the members that is affecting their health and their ability to perform. This isn't a situation of returning the favor or being ideologically consistent. It was a bad decision for them not to address Joel's problems and just let it keep going. And the results speak for themselves. If they let Aaron keep going on tour while he's having these problems with his mental health and addiction, it's only prolonging the issue. And those issues certainly can't be any easier to deal with when you're on the road in another country playing shows every night. That's why it was right for the band to intervene and let Aaron go. The rest of the band is going to profit off the name with Aaron gone. It's Aaron's band since he was the last founding member, so they shouldn't keep going under the Amity Affliction. I don't think metalcore music is particularly profitable in general, and in the case of the Amity Affliction, I would say the community is relatively niche overall, and the band is certainly past its prime in terms of quantitative success. There isn't much to be made outside whatever comes from buying tickets and merch at this point. With Aaron being the last founding member, that's not important to me. The last lineup with him in it had been together for almost 10 years, at the least, individual members even longer, so to the point where it doesn't matter who started the band in the first place. Just because you're a founding member doesn't mean you're invulnerable of intervention. The rest of the band painted Aaron in a negative light and made him look like the bad guy by announcing his problems publicly. From the evidence that we have publicly, what did the band do or say to present Aaron in a negative light or make him seem like he's in the wrong? The first announcement mentioned in one sentence that his struggle with mental health and addiction. And by the way, that subject matter should not be anything new or off limits to talking about in this fan base. And in the second post, they mentioned Aaron's personal struggles again and how those things have been negatively affecting their relationship and the success of the band. They ended the statement positively by saying they're thankful for Aaron's work in the band and everything he's done for them, and they wish him the best. Any negativity in this situation is either Aaron's own doing by responding and engaging immaturely on social media. Either that or the people that have a preemptive bias against the band, and then considering them mentioning his issues publicly as some kind of personally charged campaign against Aaron. The band isn't taking any responsibility and putting all of the blame on Aaron. I have to ask what you think the band should take responsibility for. If there was anything significant that they were doing to cause the problems between them and Aaron, then Aaron should have absolutely called it out, to some degree. If that was the case, he would have had a much more convincing stance for himself. But he didn't call anything out, he just assigned injustice to himself right away and let the chaos in the fanbase continue on its own. The situation was personally charged against Aaron. The rest of the band had some kind of discord with them, and that's what really made them kick him out. They just don't care about him anymore. This is highly unlikely to me. And it seems like it's the root idea under a lot of Aaron's supporters' opinions about the whole thing. Call me naive if you want for thinking that there was some at least a moderately good relationship in the band that kept them functioning together for this long. Even if they weren't anything close to friends or they didn't particularly like each other, the band couldn't have produced music or played shows at the quality and consistency that they did if there was always such a level of contempt among them. And if there was in fact some kind of contempt that led to Aaron being kicked out, then it didn't come out just because of the recent situation. It's undeniable that Aaron's performance ability has been going down for years at this point, and whether or not that's because of his struggle with addiction or his lack of interest in touring, the band kept going on anyway. I think that the tour where he first got kicked was probably the limit of how much they were going to allow these issues to continue. I also think it's unlikely that the band sent him away the first time without offering their own support or availability, even if it was after they finished that tour. I know it might sound naive if you think the worst of these people now. For everything that the band has made music about, stood by, allied with, represented, and been through, I can't imagine them having that kind of apathy and negligence for this kind of situation. And the last point about this is that there was no way that kicking Aaron off the tour and out of the band was an easy or quick decision. Again, even taking the belief that the band didn't ever like each other at all personally, the general opinion up until the breakup was that Aaron is the most important member of the band in terms of listening to the music. We all know that his voice gives power to every chorus and every song, and his distinct sound that really sets this band apart from the rest. They had to have understood that. And now that we have hindsight to it all, that is still a sentiment that is being continuously held today, even if Aaron's abilities are worsening. So to me, it doesn't follow that the band would start to recognize his issues while on tour and then immediately kick him off. Aaron is just too important for that. Like I said, he's something of a fan favorite, and they had to have understood what would happen if they kicked him off a tour. It wasn't a personal agenda of them not caring about his issues or his role. It was a longer process that they were probably putting up with until they decided that they couldn't anymore. They had to have made that cost-benefit analysis for either continuing the struggle or intervening at the expense of the fans' disappointment. So what's going to happen next? I'm not sure. I don't know what the future is really going to be like, but I know it's going to be clearly different. It's going to be like night and day from the Aaron saga and whatever's next. If you're not listening to the Amity Affliction anymore because you're boycotting them, or if you just need something to scratch the Amity Affliction itch that is so hard to find now, then I am going to be listening to Ocean Sleeper. They're also a metalcore band from Australia that has some really good choruses, really good melodies, emotional lyrics, and from what I know so far, no drama. I've just recently got into them and I'm loving every single song that I'm hearing. They really scratch that Amity Affliction itch for me. So yeah, that's what I've been listening to get my Amity Affliction fix as of late, and I recommend that you listen to them too. I wanted to talk about this just because of how much of a fan I am, and I never thought that something like this would happen to kind of a more niche band that I'm into that kind of never really dealt with this kind of stuff before. It was really out of the blue when I saw it just about a year ago, last year I think, right? And it was all just so crazy that my favorite band actually kind of went through this huge obstacle, like right before my eyes. To see something like this happen to a band that became my favorite, and all of a sudden now this stuff is happening, and just having to take all of this in and form my opinions on it, and if I even wanted to continue listening to this stuff or which side I wanted to take and everything. Anyway, that's all I've got, so thanks for watching.